So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues, dear friends. Welcome to the version of September edition of the Local Government and Municipal Authorities Constituency webinars towards COP29. My name is Yunus Arik, and I'm delighted to lead this webinar in my capacity as the Director of Global Advocates, but also as the focal point of the Local Government and Municipal Authorities Constituency. Um, those who are familiar in this sessions, we are having these kind of webinars every month, usually in the third week in two rounds, one for the Eastern Hemisphere, one for the Western Hemisphere. The dates were already communicated earlier, but this month we had to make a slight change and we have to move this the dates of this webinar slightly earlier. We apologize for this inconvenience because there, due to calendar invites, there may be some confusions, and some of the participants may not be able to join us. So we hope they will still get the recordings later on, as usual, our practice, and we'll be happy to stay connected with them. Again, for housekeeping, we usually go through a presentation with in cases where applicable, there are some guests who are joining us. Um, in this webinar, we are delighted that my colleague Ariel Dekovic, head of ICTES Communications, will be joining us, especially in the last part, to share the updates and the process for the LGMA COP29 joint positions. We in regular updates, we usually have also a discussion on the biodiversity update, but this month we are focusing a bit more on our New York City agenda, and we will cover that on as well. And in case you have any questions, we recommend you to type it in the chat box and also on the Q&A if needed. We can respond immediately if it's a very burning question, but we also recommend that we can have the debate Q&A answer at the end of the webinar. So with these remarks, I think we have settled with all the participants. Let me just take my tea ready for myself as well. So thanks. Uh, so let's go ahead. A lot of abbreviations. I see a couple of colleagues who are joining us for the first time. Abbreviation is the nature and beauty and the beast of the UN climate negotiations. LGMA is one of them, the Local Government and Municipal Authorities Constituency. In simple terms, it is the voice of subnationals. Towns, cities, regions, states across the world since 95. We are one of the oldest in the UNFCCC space. So we have four main axes of engagement. We influence the negotiations by our submissions, by our side events or pavilions. We contribute setting the action agenda, especially with the high-level champions in Paris. We collaborate with the presidency so that they can deliver their priorities in complementarity what we have achieved in the past. We will talk about this very unique process. Sometimes it has its own challenges, but presidencies have their rights to introduce new concepts, and we always encourage them to have a focus on multi-level action and urbanization. And obviously, at the end of the day, the decisions at the UNFCCC are adopted by the nations who are represented through their national climate ministries or environment ministries. So we also are in touch with those delegations, in addition to presidency and secretariat and champions, so that they can tabulate any positions that are negotiated or add text that we would wish to see. Um, we are having this engagement as the constituency. We are more than 60 partners involved in this process. We have this monthly webinars. We have our monthly bulletin. You can subscribe to those that can come to your mailbox immediately every month. And we also have our mailing groups that is sharing our more technical information, as well as our WhatsApp group. So those, it's a journey. It's a journey since 1992. First, we have had this an excitement that local agenda 21 acknowledged us and we were the constituency, but there was a dark era where we were not too much involved in the process because UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol didn't allow us to recognize it. So starting from the Bali process, we started to a process for recognition, engagement, and empowerment of local and regional governments in this process. That was a long journey, especially with the hiccup from Copenhagen. We elevated our efforts, and we reached the Paris Agreement in 2015. That was remarkable because since then there were numerous references, numerous initiatives, numerous new concepts and processes. But then we have moved further, especially in the Glasgow, when we are there to raise ambition and the second NDCs. We made some progress, and there was a Glasgow Climate Pact which was building on the Paris Agreement to strengthen the language that it recognizes multi-level action. And the Sharm el Sheikh and to Dubai, we accelerated our work. The Dubai outcomes was remarkable because we had a decision, paragraph 161, that urges parties for multi-level action. And we have an impressive CHAMP initiative, which 72 countries and expanding and counting are delivering this in action through their national processes in collaboration with us as the networks and their local and subnational governments. The COP28 outcomes is remarkable. There are decisions, there are initiatives, and there's a troika, which is aiming to bring the results to COP30 in Brazil with the new NDCs, which is remarkable because Dubai outcomes are ambitious. So it's really significant commitments from fossil fuel transition to renewables and desertification. It is inclusive with the way we are engaged in side events, but also in the discussions and the topics that were not on the table before. And it's a remarkable landmark for multi-level action because the local climate action summit, the second urbanization ministerial, and the multi-level action and urbanization pavilion of LGMA with UN Habitat is playing a key role in connecting all the dots. That is the instrumental connection to all this connectivity of all these efforts. This is a cyclic process. Every year there's a new government. It is decided by the United Nations regional grouping so that it travels from continents to continents. And there's usually the countries who host this COP hand over their mandates around mid-year, but they still have efforts to take forward. But starting from the June sessions in Bonn, they gradually give the bulk of the work to the incoming presidency. In that case, Emirates has delivered, and it's still, of course, helping us, especially on the champ. But Azerbaijan, the delegation has started aggressively since the beginning of the year. Rapid announcement of the delegations, like the high-level champions, youth champion, observer focal point, and initiatives call it, who have been with us throughout the months in the past, including our webinars and our communications. In the advisory board of COP29, we are even more advantaged because we have two leaders, Mayor Maimuna Sharif and Mayor Josephine Belmonte. And of course, there is the Troika as well. Throughout the year, we are mapping our agenda on three main axes. One, this is the global agenda, the elections, the initiatives like G7, G20. They have their own modalities, and sometimes we are very advantageous, sometimes not. There is the UNFCCC official mandate that LGMA is engaging. We have procedures, the UN practices, and recognized procedures that we are able to follow. But of course, every year it also has its own challenges because every year there may be a new UN agenda. For example, this year's challenge is that the three Rio Convention COPs, the UN Summit of the Future, and the World Urban Forum are all overlapping in the last 4 months, which is one of the very, very busiest years that we have ever seen. And we have our own channels. We have climate weeks in London, New York. We have seen in Belém this year, and we will have in Baku for the first time. We have our own meetings there in cities, urban summits in Sao Paulo, and we have our discussions also like Innovate for Cities, Urban 7 and Urban 20 Mayor Summits as well. And of course, Urban October is also expanding throughout the year, throughout the month before COPs. I'm not going too much on the details, but whatever we have done until now is now escalated into a new cycle. It's a very busy 100 days to go. It already started with forums, IPCC nominations, and all these ongoing work. And particularly in Europe will be an issue that we will all go through it in a couple of minutes. In order to spare more time, I was not going to do it, but there will be one event that I will highlight in this presentation in a couple of minutes now. Um, Champ is our biggest initiative that we are focusing on. It is a commitment of the nations, but it's a commitment to work with us. Therefore, we have a stake in that, and we have a responsibility to sort of support this. But at the end of the day, it's the ministries of urbanization and ministries of climate to commit or to stick to their commitments to bring multi-level NDCs. We have made good progress. We had supported the first Dorsers Roundtable in Bonn in June. And now we had this month a very important webinar on the 4th of September by the GCOM on behalf of the LGMA constituency, which was really well attended by our partners across the world. We congratulate them. These are available now on the CHAMP website, also the previous activities and engagements. So you can always visit the LGMA page of, sorry, the CHAMP page of the LGMA website. Um, During this machinery of Champ with the presidency and the partnership with Bloomberg, we're also encouraging the let's say bottom up engagement of the associations of the local governments or subnational governments at the national level, especially in the endorsing countries. This was an important agenda that was put forward, particularly by Bonn Mayor Enikle Gexcom, climate advocacy champion or chair, as well as the vice president of the German Association of Cities or Association of German Cities, Deutsche Städte. Since June, we're rolling out and we have made huge achievements. So in the last months, or especially throughout June, Association of German Cities, Brazil National Front of Mayors, and the U.S. Conference of Mayors adopted resolutions with their own languages, with their own priorities, but focusing on three main things: commend our nation that they have endorsed CHAMP, express our readiness to work together, and commit that we also would elevate our work, especially through town hall COPs. This puts us one of the unique slides of this webinars in the past. This is something that we are introducing to you now as a work in progress. Where do we now see all these activities, processes, connections? We know this is becoming particularly very difficult to understand or adjust. And we are always prepared that there may be some additions. But if we are now going towards NDCs 3.0 to be presented by next year in 2025 in Belém, this is not just a report or a document, but it will open a new way of engagement. And this way of engagement, especially with the achievements we had, I think it makes sense that we design it in such a manner that we have to engage our communities through our town hall COPs, that we are not only discussing our own climate plans, but how we relate ourselves with our NDCs and global processes. And that connects to our national government, but also to the LGMA. Because we have a national role, the national local associations, in addition to individual ones of each of the local energy governments, they could play a role. And that's exactly the campaign that we are rolling out. So that it's not just only the front runners, but collectively all local energy governments, all sizes should be engaged in this process and be acknowledged by their national governments. And all these feed into the NDCs, which is the national process. But we as LGMA, of course, as you have seen it in the case of Germany, Brazil, US, and so many countries around the world, but also the presidencies and the UNF secretary, we still play a central role. So that while the national processes go on, our advocacy, LGM advocacy, also goes on towards national governments, the ones who are friendly with us, also to the UNFCCC with submissions, with participation in workshops and pavilions and other elements that we are using. And when it comes to the UNFCCC, nations submit their NDC 3.0s and, of course, other decisions to be discussed. We engage in those processes, but also we connect to our action agenda into Marrakesh Partnership with UNEP as the co-lead of the Human Systems Group, and also Surge Initiative, which is bringing the habitat community or urbanization community, obviously the key partners, the UN Habitat for that, so that we are also able to make sure that this is an annual process going forward. And then when decisions are adopted at the COPs, we bring back both the national governments have responsibility to implement, but we as LGMA also have a responsibility, and we can inform our members, and we should then start the cyclic process once again that towards the next year, we align ourselves, we improve our capacities, and we deliver results and bring back to the COP. This, we believe, could be the new reality, the new web of local to global advocacy, and we believe we could use this in our new vision that will be presented in Baku. Again, town hall COPs is something that we really would like to test in October, and even during the COP itself, because we know Baku may not have so many opportunities because of huge costs, lack of financial contributions, and overlap with the G20 agenda. Therefore, some of the town hall COPs may even be envisaged to be held in time with the COP, and we will do our best that they could be then connected to the multi-level action and urbanization pavilion at the Blue Zone as well. We'll provide more details on that as well. I'm now coming to an important agenda that you remember we had the count at the 100 days. There are a number of processes, a number of meetings, but this one um, that has been working on is very, very important in the sense this is the first time in the Paris Agreement era and towards NDCs, the mitigation negotiators are focusing on urban systems. In the past, they focused on energy. They resulted with this huge outcome on the transition phase out language. So this process has been run in 2 rounds in the year. First meeting in June in Bonn, it was focusing on buildings. Now it's focusing on urban systems. It will be held in Sharm el Sheikh. We have the chance to nominate our delegations there, but also we will be providing active contributions. We have received an invitation from the presidents, from the secretariat and the co-chairs that we can nominate even some experts to lead, and even in the solutions hub that we can present. I will be there as a moderator or facilitator in one of those 3 topics, and we will have 2 LGMA seats to participate. So if we can make sure the discussions in this meeting is effective, then we can expect more outcomes, more confidence in the negotiations in Baku, then help to our NDC process as well. We are sharing here the biggest agenda in the next couple of weeks is the agenda in New York City, the heart of advocacy, politics, and climate action will be beating in New York City starting from 19th to 26th. It is a combination of activities around the Summit of the Future, where the local and regional governments' engagement are coordinated by UCLG on behalf of the Global Task Force, especially on the days from 19th to 22. But from 2023, from 22 to 27 is also a climate action week, which is really a crowdsourced, open source process. And obviously, we're talking about hundreds and even thousands of events. And the climate group, our distinguished partner in the LGMA, they are doing their best to expand the news in person and hybrid participation. We would like to highlight some select events during this process. Um, Obviously, from 19 to 22, as we said, it is the UN agency event or UN-led process. It has its own procedures. The Global Task Force is managing it very well, but we are aware there are options limited. So our biggest achievement there is the 19th of September. In between, there will be more events to come, but they will be a bit more focused on the summit agenda. Starting from 22nd, with the high-level opening of New York City Climate Week, we will expect 23, 24, 25, and 26 very busy. A couple of agendas like a breakfast for subnationals for CHAMP, endorsers, a roundtable, high-level political dialogue on the 24th, COP29 side event, as you have seen here with the flyer, SDSN, Urban Finance Hub, high-level champions dialogue on the 23rd, and a special event of the US government on the scale exchange. So we will make sure these are updated. Much more information is available now in our tracking sheet. We are making sure that the preliminary or most up-to-date events list will be available at the LGMA bulletin that will be available on the 18th of September. But it cannot be comprehensive. We know that there may be events that we are missing, but we are assuming that this will be most of the big event or major events that we will be seeing. On that 23rd, one of the things that we would like to see is that COP29 presidency has made a couple of innovations. They always, presidencies start for initiatives. They have around 10 plus initiatives. One of the initiatives for the sustainable, climate resilient, healthy cities. It's not a process as such, it's a declaration, but it really touches important points. It is really introducing some new concepts. It is not committing major new mechanisms, but it is encouraging for synergy, both in terms of processes, but financing of activities, but also the continuity of efforts towards balance. In that sense, we believe it's a very welcoming initiative we would like to endorse. There is another initiative by the presidency, which is happening for the first time, that there is a truce deal. It's a very simple statement that the COP29 presidency invites all arms silent during the COP. That's especially valuable when we are seeing so many suffering. We are also aware the biodiversity COP is also focusing on peace. We have seen an interesting move from the presidency that they circulated this document before reaching out to the nations, to the constituency, with the spirit that if all the constituencies, from trade unions to women and gender, from youth to business and climate environmental groups, it can demonstrate a strong message to the world, to the parties, that they also accept and they agree with this proposal. Uh, it was a bit communicated in a very short time frame, so we could not react immediately. But we would suggest that on the 23rd of September, when we are in the COP29 side event on the cities initiative, we as collected as LGMA announce our endorsement for this truce deal. We would stay in touch with all the partners so that we would communicate this as appropriate. With this in mind, I am now delighted to give the floor to my colleague Ariel to take us through where we are in the COP29 positions of LGMA constituency. Ariel, I assume you're here with us.
I am. Apologies for a little background noise, but yes, I am here. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Great to be with you. So as Eunice indicated, we have moved forward on our joint messages. And first of all, a huge thank you to all of the many participants from the LGMA who weighed in on this joint position. We are at the point where we're kind of in the final moments before we want to release this for endorsement. And so that means that we'll basically have an open feedback for the next couple of days, but then really we're closing for a final have the final document. We have arrived at I think a pretty nice structure for this year's position. So in the past, we've kind of created a document that I would say is for a lot of different audiences, and so sometimes when you do that, it results in a deliverable that is a little bit harder for some audiences to maybe parse than other ones. And so following the recommendations of many of our talented participants in the LGMA, we've come up with basically a main very short position paper that's it's like 3 pages long that really has the broadest audience in mind. So certainly everyone who participates in the LGMA is a main audience, but here we're really trying to target elected officials and decision makers, that this is a sensible document that they can use to make interventions, to inform their own work, to inform the advocacy that they're doing, and that it's not kind of too detailed or too complicated for them to follow. We all know that elected officials and decision makers don't have much time, and so we've tried to make it as brief as possible. This also goes for ministers, negotiators, and the media as well. And so that kind of high-level document has 3 clear asks and is followed by a series of broader how-to recommendations, or how to actually fulfill those asks. And then the sort of complementary documents are documents 2 through 4, which is guidance for the parties on multi-level governance, on local and other subnational climate finance, and on integrated outcomes. And those 3 documents go into much more detailed kind of recommended outcomes. They include the outcomes text that should be included in the actual negotiations and a full background. And here you can see the 3 main high-level asks. So Eunice has been talking about those headlines, so they shouldn't be too unfamiliar, but here they are formulated in sort of very specific asks. So accelerating inclusive, multi-level, gender responsive, and cooperative action through new nationally determined contributions developed in partnership with local and other subnational governments. The second one is to finance sustainable urbanization and climate action at all levels. And the third is to align the climate, biodiversity, and pollution agendas. And so again, even in the brief document, there's a sort of broader how-to. So if we can go back to the calendar, maybe Eunice, I could speak to that for a second. So we have, as I said, we'll close the document. I'm going to share the link in a moment, so you can weigh in if there are any final comments from folks in the LGMA. And then our goal is to circulate the final version to everyone next Monday, so that folks who are headed to the Summit of the Future and the other events happening in New York have this with them and can inform their work there. We will be broadly highlighting these 3 headlines to the LGMA in upcoming communications that we have going out. So we'll have some a pre newsletter ahead of the Summit of the Future, and so we'll preview those there. And then the final full version of all of the documents with a link to how to endorse. So we'll have a form for endorsements to come in, will be circulated. We are aiming for the 23rd. So you can mark that calendar, mark your calendars as the moment when endorsements will be open. And then, of course, we want to be gathering endorsements throughout October and announce the full endorsers list at COP29 at our press conference, which we normally schedule early in the COP. So that is the process. There you see, let me share the link in the chat, and I'm happy also to answer any questions that folks may have as well on the process or content. And you can either put in
Ariel,
questions. Oh, yes, go ahead. Eunice.
thanks a lot, Ariel. This is really, I think it summarizes or distills what we have been doing. Once again, I also agree with you. A huge applause to our partners. I think we are making this very clear that there is the language that has to be discussed in the negotiations, but also there's a real work going on the ground. And we are in the middle of in a very dynamic world, both at home, at the community level, at the national level, but also global processes. So that when we go to such meetings, it's important that we are able to connect and make the linkages. I know there are a number of colleagues who have been involved in this process in the line in this call. This is an open space for us. It is possible that we may have guests because this webinar is announced in our public channels that some of the partners of this participants of this call may not be direct members of LGMA, but those who are in the process, feel free that if there's any missing point or anything that you'd like to strengthen that you can share here to complement what Ariel has presented or I have presented. We also can go through back the discussions on our agenda in New York if there are any immediate points. As we said, the main bulletin will be on the 18th of September, which is Wednesday. and we will dedicate it like the special New York City edition. We will have our regular LGMA monthly bulletin on the 13th of September as scheduled. The purpose is that any announcements that's coming from New York, you may expect there are some meetings, that some sessions who are preparing their own announcements, their own outcome documents that we are aware of some of them. We are not allowed to present them here. But we know these will be very important on our road to the rest of the agendas in the next 3 months. On the 13th of September, we will try to also collect them. But as Ariel mentioned, you will hear the endorsement link. You will have the full list of the documents. You will also see both on the 23rd and then on the 30th, our preparation for our pavilion, LGMA COP29 Multi-Level Action and Urbanization Pavilion by ICLE as the LGMA focal point and UN Habitat, with some very distinguished co-hosts who are helping us to materialize this pavilion in a 100-meter square in the Blue Zone, so that these will also be announced on the 23rd, and the other links will be available on the website as well as the bulletin on the 13th of September. I see some feedbacks coming to the chat box, which is appreciated. We have colleagues from India, Sustainable Development from India. Welcome, Mr. Mange Ramadana. Ariel just shared the link. This is for comments, so it's a moderated page so that we prepare that we may respect to our agreed principles in the adoption of all the inserts. We have colleagues from Medellin, Colombia. Probably it's a very, very early time for you, Sixto Palacios, Quinto from Medellin, Colombia. We will repeat this webinar at 4 p.m. Central European time, which is much easier for you, but we appreciate your commitment to connect to us. We have a colleague, Anke Obenland Spira, from the government of Baden-Württemberg, southern Germany, one of the states, one of the 16 states of Germany. I'd like to know how I can find the responsible for CHAMP in our national government. Is there a list of signatories with names available? This is a very valid question. Unfortunately, we are not able to share these connection details because of the data protection right. But what we can do, we can send an email to COP28 president, which is currently leading the coordination among the endorser countries, including Germany, and the colleagues from GCOM, who is helping them to implement some of the engagement of the networks of local and subnational government there. We would appreciate if you can send an email to lgma@icle.org so that then we can connect you to our colleagues in forward. Yes, Ariel shared the email address once again. Thank you, Ariel. This also goes to other colleagues who are in this call. If you are having a difficulty to reach out, we can make this bridging. But I assume you would be appreciating that we are not in a position to share direct contacts like that. Thank you very much, Annika, for your interest. As I said, we deliberately kept this webinar to be short, especially to reserve time for us for the position paper, New York City agenda. But any discussion points that you want to raise, I would be, for example, very happy to hear a debate or a feedback, the initial, let's say, reactions from this visual, this new web that we have presented to you here. This will be worked out in the coming days and weeks together with our colleagues from the communications group and other LGMA partners. And our suggestion is that this will be part of our final document that gives us the vision of how we are prepared towards a new era with NDC 3.0 in action and advocacy. Uh, so this is also something that we could discuss. We can try to respond any questions on the champ if needed. And of course, we can always save time for ourselves, both as presenters, but also audience, in order to keep short this session so that you can focus on other topics that you are dealing with. Um, once again, maybe I show once again the 100 days list. That may be helpful for colleagues. As today, even we are already taking place. For example, I4C, Innovate for Cities, is taking place in Montreal today. It's concluding in Montreal with an important call to action coming up. Uh, Next week, obviously, we are focusing on the New York agenda. Immediately after New York, we have the Aalborg City Summit. Uh, there is the Baku Climate Action Week on the same dates of Aalborg. Then we will also have PCOP in Baku, but in between we have this Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt for this mitigation. In between there are some other sessions of UNFCCC like loss and damage board meeting in Baku, which is taking place also next week. Our colleagues from C40, UCLG, they are all following this agenda. Biodiversity COP in Cali will be an important agenda because of our strong engagement in the process. We will be hopefully during Urban October have a discussion on this town hall COPs, especially with the last round of the Daring Cities closing webinar. Urban 7 mayors will try to engage the G7 Urban Ministerial. At the beginning of November, we will be in Cairo, Egypt. We will kick off our agenda in uh, Baku with our press conference on the first day, on the 11th of November. We are aware the second week of COP will cover overlap with G20 and also including an Urban 20 Mayor Summit in Rio. But we are making sure throughout the 2 weeks we can convey the messages both before and after, and also create space that, especially those who are not going to Rio, Urban 20 uh, uh, members or observers, that if your city is not part of it, it's even a better opportunity for you to demonstrate your engagement in Baku. We are very happy, as we said, a 100-meter square multi-level action urbanization pavilion is secured. More details are on the way. This is an important agenda because this will give us the chance that we can contribute throughout the 2 weeks. And we know it was not an easy. We particularly express our appreciation to both UN Habitat, but also COP29 presidency because of our last details of collaboration with our partners as who will be announced as co-host with their generous contribution with cash contributions or in-kind contributions. We will be ready to announce them on the 23rd, but we are very happy that we are diversified in terms of our partnerships and expanding our influence, both in terms of the typology of our partners, but also regional diversity as well. That gives us the more confidence that we are as a global partnership advancing further. And we will feed into the desertification COP after the climate COP in Riyadh, which will be important for the biodiversity agendas this year as well. Um, I can come back as the last point of the key messages of the LGMA as the three headlines that Ariel has summarized here. As our concluding slide, if there are no other contributions, I see a couple of new things on the chat box. Danya. Danya is our colleague who is in the champions team on the city, states, and regions agenda. Um, she's mentioning that Razan Al Mubarak of the 28th president from the Emirates, she's putting a huge effort on the informality. Last year in Dubai, she really put a huge emphasis to bring nature to the radar of climate negotiations and processes, which was very well received and had a strong uh, response. We are following up with a number of other initiatives, especially to be announced in Cali. And now she's putting her effort to the informality issue. That is particularly important because the NDC 3.0, if we really mean them that they are all of society approach, the informal sectors, particularly having their acknowledgement or access to the governmental process through their local and regional governments across the world. That's a reality. It's they can be ignored at the national level, but the local governments cannot ignore the informal sectors. So she's preparing a couple of discussions and consultations, and we are hearing from Dania that they will send a couple of lines to our position. This is well received. This will be well received, I believe, because we are already working a lot, especially the right to the city, the SDGs agenda. This was also a big discussion we're having. This can also be a discussion on the loss and damage processes. Therefore, we really welcome this contribution, and we look forward to your contributions on that. Ariel, maybe I give you. I see partners in the call. I don't see them have their hands raised. Maybe closing remark in the last couple of minutes. Ariel, would you like to compliment with anything that was missing, or but
Yeah.
you would like to react now?
Maybe one particular thing I could ask for, because I see a number of representatives from city staff, is if you can have a look at the position paper and just get in the mind of your elected leader and see if it resonates. Is this a message you can imagine your leader, being able to pass on, you know, finding it compelling, and finding their own story to be able to tell with it. So I think for me, that's something that at the end of or after COP28, we had I remember a brief conversation about, kind of how to motivate elected leaders to adopt the position. And so I'm hoping that maybe the new structure of the position will make it more compelling to them. But I am interested in very frank feedback if we're still kind of too technical or too high level, or whatever the kind of issue is. So I would love to hear any feedback. Also in via email, you can share it to lgma@ickley.org, or put it into the document as well. So thanks all.
Thanks, Ariel. I will react to this in particular in connection to the town hall COP. But we received one input from our colleague Carl Wright, from longtime friend through Commonwealth Local Government Forum. I'm reading his input in the chat box for all the others to be aware. He's asking about position 3 on page 11, the first paragraph, if it might be worth putting in including SIDS after developing countries. It is not always realized that SIDS are much more impacted by urbanization as well as, of course, climate change. And this will be highlighted at APIA Commonwealth Summit in October by Commonwealth Local Government Forum and a long-term partner of the LGMA. Ariel, I assume there should not be any objection to this, but just wanted to highlight this so that you take note of that. I want to come back to your point, Ariel. We can use this time. Last year, is what we have done is that we had 70 plus partners, states and cities, regions, networks, associations endorsing this paper. Uh, how to make sure this is also implemented at the local level? That could be something that we can start to involve more actively. And that I want to bring the discussion to the town hall COPs. Um, I know it's not easy because of the time pressure. You have to really prepare in advance. But maybe when we receive those, it's like now loudly speaking with you, um, those who endorse this, when we receive their endorsement, maybe we can also recommend them that we encourage you to convene a consultation at your own locality from today until the end of COP in a format that you find appropriate, which we have said in the uh, town hall COP structure, uh, and that you discuss this paper plus your climate commitments with your communities, and then inform us that we inform UNFCCC. So this is like putting one more element that the message is spread wide. So it's not sent only to the UN, but also a debate at the local level. We can discuss. It's very likely that because of the short notice, it may not be so easy to implement now. Um, but I think it could give us the vision how to move forward in the coming years. Of course, we are waiting for the preparation for Brazil. Therefore, such experiences could help us. And this also complements the notion of the stock take process being presented at the local level, at subnational level. That will be the point I would like to raise with you. We can discuss with other partners, but this could be an idea that we can work on as such. Happy to hear if there are any reactions from any other partners in this call so that this could debate on that. But if not, we can leave it like a point to be discussed further. Good. We do not have additional points so far in the chat box. That is good. At least the ones that were raised here were responded, and we have received the communication inputs that we will take on board. I suggest we can still use our 15 minutes for our own selves, and that we continue our work uh, in our offices, in our homes. Ariel, thank you very much. Thanks to all LGMA working groups and especially the drafting committee. Thanks for all your participation. Stay tuned for our bulletin on the 18th of September, a special edition for New York City. Stay tuned, especially for 23rd of September on some initiatives. On the 24th, we will have the CHAMP uh, high-level political dialogue, which will be an opportunity for a number of reports and updates to be released. And we hope to see you, those who are in person in New York. Many of us will be there. Those who are not, we will connect you via virtual platforms, hopefully. Uh, don't forget about the plans for Baku Pavilion. It's coming up. Any colleague who would wish to be connected to the Sharm el Sheikh workshop of the UNFCCC, feel free to reach us. And 30th of September is the September bulletin for capturing all the updates.